Well, we're back, Dolphins fans. It's time for another episode of PhinManiacs Live. It's been a while since we got here, but time and technical difficulties have gotten in our way, but we're doing it now. But first, before I get started doing anything, I just want to take a moment and extend our heartfelt condolences to the Miami Marlins. The tragic loss of their ace pitcher, Jose Fernandez, in a boating accident yesterday. It's a horrible thing to think about, especially when it's somebody like Fernandez who was revolutionizing Florida baseball and with so much cultural relation with Florida, South Florida. It kind of brings us all into perspective exactly how short life can be, especially if it's somebody like Fernandez who he symbolized the culture of South Florida. He loved baseball. He had a great passion for life in general, and our hearts go out to the Miami Marlins and for the rest of South Florida and to all of the baseball world. He will be sorely missed. Uh, Chad, I know that I don't know if you have a big horse in the race when it comes to baseball, but how did you react when you heard what happened to Jose Fernandez?
Well, obviously, it's a tragedy. I don't really know anything.
Hey Chad, your mic, man, it's a little messed up.
Is that any better?
No, it's like a hum. Is it plugged in properly?
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and keep going. Let me switch something up.
All right. So yeah, essentially it's gotten to the point where like the Marlins are currently playing right now, and apparently D. Gordon hit a leadoff home run and rounded the bases just in tears. It's obvious how much Fernandez meant to his teammates and to the Miami Marlins. So I will give credit where it's due, even though I like to the Marlins organization. I have been rather harsh about the whole thing, but I I mean I really am speechless about it. When I heard that Fernandez had been killed, I honestly thought that it was some kind of a joke. I thought that it wasn't real. It couldn't have been real. And lo and behold, it turned out that yes, it was. It was just something I couldn't. I was stunned. Chad, are you here?
All right, is that better, Lewis?
Much.
Okay. No, I was just saying it's obviously it's a tragedy, and to me it doesn't matter the sport. It's just it's shocking. If you have a favorite team, you just have to think of taking one of your favorite players and just having him suddenly die in an accident like that. It's just tragic, and it does kind of send a shockwave through community.
Yep. So our hearts go out to the Miami Marlins and their fans, and I don't know, man. It's gonna hurt for quite some time because you could tell how much passion Fernandez had for the game, for what he did, and considering his story getting there, he risked his life several times just to get to America to make his dream come true, and he did. He was on his way to becoming one of the best pitchers in baseball, if he wasn't already. So, 24 years old, a life cut painfully short. So, but we're gonna try and move on. Eventually, life has to move on, so we're gonna try and see if we can't talk some Dolphins football here tonight. It's not like there is a shortage of stuff to talk about, especially considering it's been over a month since our last show. Time and technical difficulties over the past few shows have caused us to have these problems. So we're here now. So here's just what's a little preview of what's going to be on the block. I have a theory about Ryan Tannehill and some NFL quarterbacking in general, so we'll talk about that. And also, we're just going to talk about the last few weeks in general, what our general observations are, why we think the problems are happening, the core issues of it all, if you will, and if there's any hope that we can maybe fix these issues going forward. So that's about it. We're pretty much playing catch up on tonight's show. So, and if you wanted to call in and give your 2 cents, you can call 954-376-5704. We'll listen to whatever you guys have to say, and we'll discuss anything you want to talk about. So first thing is first. First 3 weeks of the season, and we have had a severe issue with the Dolphins just not playing well really at all in any aspect of the game. Certainly not for an extended period of time. There have been moments here and there where suddenly they look like this unstoppable juggernaut, specifically on offense, and then they just kind of fall off the face of the earth all over again. It's not exactly something I have an answer for. It's not something that I understand. It baffles the mind that they can look so bad and then so good and then so bad all over again and just continue to flip flop from drive to drive. It's not even from game to game. It's drive to drive. Like the first drive, Ryan Tannehill will look like a star. Then it looks like he has no idea what he's doing. And then the next drive, it kind of flips back again, and that's the Ryan Tannehill roller coaster. So, and the defense has been bad all throughout. But then every once in a while, there'll be a little flash of what we saw early 2014 when the defense was actually something to still be concerned about for other teams. Like suddenly it was the Dolphins defense that was the strength of the team, and then right after Denver, I don't know what happened. They haven't been good since. So, just your general thoughts over the first 3 weeks, Chad. What do you think is going on here, man?
Well, without a doubt, I don't. I have to point the biggest problem back at the coaches right now, and not saying the coaches have bad philosophies. I do like the type of offense they're running and the type of defense they're running, but Adam Gase has to figure out how to get the guys ready to play, and they have not played well all year. And it looked worse in Cleveland than it has in the prior two games. And what I'm seeing is a lot of players that are lost. The running backs looked lost all game during Cleveland. Receivers running wrong routes. You can see Tannehill visibly frustrated with receivers often because guys aren't doing the right things for the play. And it doesn't matter how you draw anything up if your guys can't go out on the field and understand what they're supposed to do and execute it. You're doomed to fail. And it doesn't matter if you're playing the best team in the NFL or the worst team in the NFL. If people are running in the wrong spots and not blocking the correct people, it's just a mess. And that's all I see right now is a team that doesn't understand the plays. And that's almost one of the most fundamental aspects. And I have to think part of it is, Adam Gase has never been a head coach. And I just question if he's probably still trying to figure out the proper way to get those guys prepared, during the weeks of practice. How do we have these guys ready to know what they're doing? And I think they said this early on. He wanted to throw a lot at Ryan Tannehill. He wanted Tannehill to be moving people around, but I'm just early on. I'm guessing that he has thrown offense at a rate faster than the players have been able to comprehend it. And I've watched a little bit of the Browns game again, and it looks like a preseason game. Like there's running backs that are going the wrong direction on some plays. There's several plays where it's not necessarily guys getting beat on blocks. It's guys not even understanding who they're supposed to block. You see two guys blocking the same guy and let somebody run free. And I'm hoping that's something they can improve on, but I don't know. It's troublesome that all the problems that we had last year really have not been corrected. Ryan Tannehill still has very poor pocket presence. I know at times there are some guys that get beat on the line, but the reality is from everything I've seen, the pass blocking's definitely improved this year than what it had been in the past year. And you can't expect not all five guys to never get beat. And Ryan Tannehill just does not have very good pocket presence. He doesn't move away. He doesn't sense pressure very well, and that hurts him over and over. You can't take those blindside shots. You got to have a feel for where the pressure is coming from, and he tends to just forget about paying attention to the pass rushers as he looks downfield, and it costs him sometimes. I'd like to see Ryan Tannehill just take off sometimes, not just sit there flat footed in the pocket, but literally just take off and run, be dangerous in the pocket. And I don't know if he'll ever do that or not, but that continues to be a problem with Ryan Tannehill. Defensively, it was embarrassing against the Patriots, and Cleveland continues to do it. Teams just continue to over and over just run wide sweeps and stretch plays to the left side of our right side of our defense. They're running it to the left side, and it's just has not even been close to being stopped. I don't know how many times the Patriots did it when we had them on the ropes, and we almost got bailed out of that game with their kicker missing a field goal. But the reality was is the Patriots ran that play like 4 or 5 times on that drive, and people are getting 5 to 10 yards every time we do it. And I don't honestly know what the problem is. I don't know if our right defensive end just is struggling in run coverage. I don't know if it's our corners or safeties are struggling to come up and make tackles, or if it's Cole Misi is struggling over there. But they have got to get that locked down because it's the same side, and teams are just exploiting it over and over. And until we can fundamentally stop that, it's going to be a long, long year on defense as well. So those problems continue to plague us, and at the very least, I do applaud Gase for starting to pull some guys because if guys aren't able to do their job, whether it's they're physically getting beat or they're not putting in the time to understand the plays, then doesn't matter talent. I liked that comment from him. I don't care how talented a guy is, if he doesn't understand his job, he's not playing. And that hopefully he's getting the team put on notice that you better know your assignments come Sunday.
I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if it's not even a coaching problem because I got to think about it like this. We've had the same players for the past year, 2 years and a half, 2.5 years. It's been 2.5 years really, because the end of the Broncos game marked the beginning of the Dolphins defense just being awful. Because this is the weirdest thing to me. It really is the weirdest thing to me, Chad. Because up until the Broncos game in 2014, the defense was dangerous. It was amazing. It was one of the best defenses in football. And then inexplicably, there's no actual explanation for it. Suddenly, everybody just got really, really bad. It's like I don't have an answer for it, man, because that's really how it happened, just suddenly.
I think it's a fair statement to say for the last couple of years our defense is no longer a dominant defense, and we got used to we went through all those years and we had Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas and Sam Madison and Patrick Surtain, and
Yeah, I know that.
those are
I
all
know
Pro Bowl
that.
caliber players. So we had really good defenses,
But
and
Chad, that's what
now
I'm. But Chad, that's what I mean, man. Like 2014, where we're going off the same. We were awesome in defense. We were incredible. We were one of the best teams in football at the time before Denver, and then all of a sudden we just fell apart. I
Well,
don't have an
like I
answer.
said, we just don't have great defense right now. We don't have exceptional talent at the linebacker positions for one. I don't think Cole Misi or Jelani Jenkins would probably start on a lot of teams in the NFL. And so that's part of the problem. But the other major aspect you can't forget is our offense has just been horrific. And that ties into the defense. I mean, how many games in the last 2 years has our defense had the luxury of getting to play an offense that doesn't get to utilize their whole playbook? The Browns, the most they were down were 11 points, and Browns were never in a position where they had to throw the football a lot, and so our defense never gets that luxury. And so a lot of people forget that, if you come in and your offense gets your team up, 14 to nothing or 17 to nothing, the way you play defense changes dramatically. And our defense never gets that scenario. Our defense is continuously in a scenario where if they allowed a team to put many points up, we're in trouble because we just go three and out so frequently on offense. Our offense is right at the point of being inept, and they at times we've been getting some points by hitting some big plays. At least we're trying those. We'll get a big pass down the field to Landry or Parker, and that gets us down to get in a scoring range. But this is not a team that's going out and executing 10 to 15 play drives, running the football, moving the chains, running out the clock. We just can't do that as an offense. And when was the last time you remember our offense going out and winning a football game? It has to always be our defense, and we just don't have a defense strong enough to do that anymore. But you get the ball, and I can almost tell you right now, if we're up 3 points with 3 to 4 minutes left, our defense is going to have to win the game because our offense is just going to go out there and go three and out. They have no ability to run the football. They don't have any semblance of the ability to control the ball. They can only hit on some big plays here and there. And until that we can get an offense that can execute, players hang on to the football, no drops, and running backs that can slam in the hole and get 3 to 4 yards of carry, that's going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, I have Stephen Dodd in the YouTube chat saying that it's poor linebackers and defensive ends. Then, and by that he means there are only pass rush defensive ends. Now, I understand that point, but again, it brings me back to, and I know, Chad, that I know you know what I mean, but I get the feeling that you really don't have an actual answer for it any more than I do, because like I keep saying, 2014, the first half of the season, the defense was amazing, and then right as soon as Denver happened, it all just blew up. Like it wasn't a gradual drop off. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't, or rather, it was sudden. It was sudden. There was no warning. There was no look out. You guys are about to be in trouble. No, it was just like amazing defense. Denver. Everybody sucks because it's the same
Well,
players. It's the
no,
same players.
I don't think it was like it changed overnight. I think that Denver exploited that the Dolphins are not a good tackling football team. And what they had figured out is that, hey, look, just continue to run the football at these guys. They can't consistently stop the run. So they may stop a run on this play, but there's no way that they can stop 2 to 3 runs in a row. They don't tackle very well. And you see it. Our tackling is terrible. I mean, right now, Rashad Jones tackles very well. And he's about it. Xavier Howard tackles okay.
Koamisi.
Cole Macy can if he gets the guy, but Cole Macy's pretty slow, and so he's not going to be your tackle machine. Kiko Alonso is much better than Kelvin Shepard, sideline to sideline. He's so much faster, but
But he's still
he
bad.
fails to wrap up so often. He just comes running over and he slams into a guy, and he might redirect him, but you need to tackle. And Maxwell's terrible. I mean, he just you watch him and he doesn't even want to tackle. And so when teams start to figure out you're a weak tackling team, just keep running the ball because you're going to just continue to break runs. And so I think on both sides of the ball, we're severely lacking in physicality. We're not a team that is a threat to pound the football, and we're not a team that's a threat to man up and stop the run. And that makes it hard to win football games if you can't do either one of those things. So I don't have a good answer. I try to be creative, a possibility. I'd mentioned in Twitter this week, later in the year they were doing this. They may want to consider to continue to move Sue around a little bit rather than just have him play exclusively defensive tackle. He's fully capable of playing defensive end. Can he flat out pass rush like Mario Williams or Kevin Wake? Probably not, but he'll probably be much more effective at shutting down the run around to the outside. So I don't know if we have the talent on the interior if we vacate Sue out of there, but they're going to have to do something to at least force teams to you know throw the football. We've played nothing but almost poor quarterbacks. We had Russell Wilson hurt immobile for almost a half. We've had the third string New England quarterback, and we've had the third string Cleveland quarterback in there. And so to me, the running game should be shut down. They should be able to stack the box and force those guys to beat you. And they haven't. That's just the reality of it. They haven't been able to stop the run still. And it's scary to think about what happens when we are playing Tom Brady and some of the other quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger, and those guys coming at us. So it could be a very, very long year if they don't fundamentally just do the basics. They fundamentally execute the plays and fundamentally tackle the guys that are your assignments.
Well, we got Stephen Daw in the chat again, and he's essentially he's like our designated chat guy tonight, I guess. So he's essentially he's saying now how he's listing all the players who are new: Kiko Alonso, Mario Williams, Jason Jones, Branch Phillips is in for Mitchell, Jenkins was out last year, and the corners are new. I mean, yes, all of that is true. Isa Abdul Kadus, he's also new, but it's like yes, and you are correct in that. Yes, everybody here is new, which is why I thought that maybe something would change as far as the overall defense, its performance, but the issues are still existing here. In fact, if nothing else, if anything, they're worse somehow. Mario Williams, I mean, he's doing okay with the pass rush. He's not doing anything wow worthy, which I guess just goes to show that he's not taking plays off. He's just not as good as he used to be. And I mean, Cam Wake, he's a pass rush specialist now. He doesn't even get on the field that often. Sue is a pass rushing defensive tackle. Jordan Phillips is a pass rushing defensive tackle. I'm honestly getting to the point, Chad, where I feel like this Dolphins team has found a way to bring in personnel that, like, on other teams they would probably be good, but with this combination of players on the Dolphins defense, it just isn't going to work. Because, like, if you put let's throw this out there. Let's just be a little speculative here. If you threw Jordan Phillips on a team that has a good run defense support kind of a defense, like it's this team is built to stop the run, but they don't have much pass rush. If you gave them Jordan Phillips, I feel like he would be somebody who would stand out because he would probably be one of the lone pass rushing defensive tackles, and he would also be able to be balanced out by a team that has people who can actually do run support. They can keep you from. They have linebackers that can fill gaps. They have linebackers who can actually tackle, who will get in your face and wrap you up. I'm just thinking right now that this team overall, this team is built for finesse. It's built for speed. It's still the Joe Philbin Miami Dolphins, if you can wrap your head around what it is I'm saying here. This team may have Adam Gase as their new head coach. They may have Vance Joseph as a defensive coordinator, Clyde Christensen's the offensive coordinator, all of these new faces on the coaching staff. But you just look at the roster and it's still Joe Philbin's team, man. It's still Joe Philbin's team. Jelani Jenkins is still here. Koamisi is still here. Kiko Alonso is new, but he's also a fast, small guy who's built for more speed than anything else. He's not built for power, so trying to make him do that is not going to work. Byron Maxwell is somebody who should be playing in press, but for some reason they have him in zone, and I don't know why that works because Vance Joseph is saying he wanted to do press and he's not doing it. Xavier Howard, he's probably one of the few bright spots on this defense right now. Rashad is Rashad. He can do anything he wants. Isa Abdul Kadus, he's up and down. He's not wow worthy, but he's not making a ton of mistakes either, as far as I can tell. But this team,
He's missing several tackles. I did notice that, Lewis. He's not a he's got showed pretty good range, but Caduce has not been a standout tackler. Not what I would expect out of a safety. Nothing like Rashad Jones. You just watch it. You know, there's just so many missed tackles. I've seen Caduce come in from the side, hit a guy, and the guy keeps right on going. He doesn't get him down, and that just kills you when you got one-on-one matchups. You know, if you're blitzing a guy and you have like Caduce out in the flat, he's got to tackle the running back out there. He can't let that running back break free, otherwise your defense has failed. So I'm kind of lukewarm on Caduce right now. I would definitely like to see a better tackle, more physical play out of him right now. But that's several players on this defense right now, and I know it's easy to target starting with the tackles, but teams aren't doing a lot of slam the ball right up the gut on us. It's been a lot of the stuff around the perimeter, and I mean you saw them using Terrell Pryor, and the running backs are just doing it over and over, and it's outside the tackle, and a lot of it is just what I call is the stretch run that Denver made popular back in the 90s, and you literally just have the running back run outside. The running backs or the linemen just try to take the lineman where they want to go, and then the running back picks a crease and cuts upfield. And what you got to do on defense is just get that running back to the sideline and then contain him. And we have a breakdown every time somewhere. Either the corner is not doing his job, or a linebacker's not doing his job, or the D end. And you can't throw a lot of that scenario on Sue and Jordan Phillips, because watching them on film, Sue and Jordan Phillips are getting good push up the middle, but it doesn't matter if a team just takes off around the outside anyway. They kind of remove the threat of those guys per se. And I don't know. I mean, Jason Jones definitely hadn't been that impressive. Maybe a long shot, Deion Jordan can come back and help us out. He's extremely athletic,
he
but
hasn't even practiced yet. He hasn't even
I
ran
know,
yet.
and like I said, I don't know what the answer is right now on the outside, but they're gonna have to stop teams from doing that, or if teams are able to run the ball when they want to, that gives them pretty much the ability to do whatever they want on offense. So they're gonna have to come up with something. I'm hoping this week of all weeks, Vance Joseph gives us an advantage. If he doesn't know a good way to defend Andy Dalton in that team, I don't know what he's been doing the last few years, because that's where he was at. So
You know what
hopefully he'll have a
I'm gonna
game plan
uh,
to help slow the Bengals down,
you
because that
know you know why I think that's going to be negated.
was that.
Guess who's on the Bengals?
Oh, Kevin Coyle.
And there's nobody else who knows the weaknesses of these players better than Kevin Coyle.
Yeah, you would think so, but it's a different coach and a different offense, so that'll help a little bit. I mean,
It,
it's quite a bit different team recoil, whereas the Bengals are still the primary same core players and same system, same coach. So we'll see. I'm just trying to throw something out there that might be an advantage. It
I, don't-
was, you know,
I
but we'll
appreciate
see.
you trying to be. I appreciate you trying to be positive, Chad. I really do, because God knows that this Dolphins team could use it. But I just have to. I'm just starting to get a. I'm just really starting to get a reality check here. I don't think there's a scheme in football that is going to be able to fix this problem, which I'm really starting to believe is just based around the talent. Like, we're not as let's just say it. We are not as good as we think we should be. Like, we should.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even judge the talent if people don't know what they're supposed to be doing
And
in
that's part of the talent, man. If they don't know what they're supposed to be
preparation.
doing, how it's like I can't give it to preparation, because they weren't prepared with Philbin, they weren't prepared with Campbell, they weren't prepared with genius Adam Gase. So who has to come to fix these guys? That have to
No,
does Mike
Adam Gase
Vince Lombardi
is
got to have to
doing
come out of
all he.
retirement?
No, Adam Gase is doing exactly what you have to do. It's if you are not going to show up, know the plays, know your responsibility, and execute it in the game, you are done. You're gone. We're going to
Then
find somebody
he
that
has
can.
to bench everyone.
Well, he started. I mean, obviously, Juwan James we should have lost the game because of his missed block. That's the reality of it. And he put him on the bench. To me, that's no different than benching a running back that fumbles the football. If you have a lineman that misses a key block and lets your quarterback get killed and you fumble the football, that's just as bad of a mistake. So I think he's going to have to start benching these guys, especially guys that aren't physical. I would way rather have Billy Turner in there make some mistakes if he's going to go in there and like fight for it than have a guy that's just kind of like, oh, it's my job, and that doesn't really get emotional, doesn't really get, amped up to go in there and get the job done. So the team, like all game, I didn't see hardly any fire out of the Dolphins all game. They just kind of seemed lackadaisical, and they've kind of seemed that way all year. They seem lost. They don't seem like engaged, and I don't know if that Gase needs to find new ways to motivate them. But the bottom line is if they're going to be that way, he does need to start pulling them out. So we'll see. It's definitely looking bleak right now with the Bengals because they just have so much limited time. So I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, can he pull out Juwan James and insert Billy Turner in there at right tackle? He probably can do that or alternate him a little bit, but he can't do a wholesale change. I made the point on Twitter that if you're going to bench James, you need to get Larmy Tunsil over there. He's by far the most qualified guy to take over the tackle position. He's far more talented than what Billy Turner is going to give you in
That's
pass protection.
that is a scary prospect, Chad.
But how do you do it? I mean, he hasn't been playing right tackle all preseason,
That's what
and
I
so
mean.
well, that's I mean, you can't do it for the Bengals game. I said maybe if Juwan James is going to get benched after the bye week, you may see Laremy Tunsil at right tackle. But to me, that makes the most sense if you're going to bench James. I've always liked Billy Turner's tenacity and his ability to run block, but I watched the film on when Turner came in there, and he did well, with the exception of that last play which was the big pass to Landry that put us in position, on the 10-yard line. He did get beat on that play, and Tannehill got crushed and just got it off. So I don't think Billy Turner is going to be any better than Juwan James in pass protection, possibly worse. I do think he'll be an upgrade in the running game. So it's
Well,
my
we need
hope
that.
if Deion Sims is healthy, because you already know Jordan Cameron is out, and I think honestly at this point that's a good thing. I'm kind of over Jordan Cameron. He's hasn't been a terrific weapon in the passing game. He's had far too many drops at points, and he's he's not even average at run blocking. And so my thought is, if this guy is not going to be an offensive weapon, get him out of there and put in a guy that can block, because at least then we can run the ball a little more effectively. So it's my hope that if you use Deion Sims and Billy Turner, that will help our running game get a little more push. And at this point, you might as well, because if Juwan James is getting beat in pass protection and Jordan Cameron isn't an offensive weapon, what are they in there for anyway? You might as well bring in guys that are, bigger road grader type guys.
Someone like a Marquise Gray, huh? He seems to be getting more playing time. So I don't know, man. I, I'm waiting for Adam Gase to insist on a more physical football team. It's obvious he's getting frustrated with what's going on here because people came after Tannehill, and even the Browns people were saying, "Do you expect Tannehill needs to step up more to do for the Dolphins to succeed?" And I suppose the answer is yes, he does. He needs to start being consistent, for God's sakes. We know he can be good, but the problem is that he just isn't half the time. So there's really there's no, again, another one of those, there's no explanation other than he just isn't. Because how can you be good 1 minute and awful the next and then flip flop back and forth? No quarterback, is there any quarterback in the NFL who's like that? For real. Like how many quarterbacks in the league would get away with what Ryan Tannehill has done? And I don't mean that as to say Tannehill sucks and he needs to get out already. I mean that as in the fact that he has managed to look just good enough to warrant sticking around, but he's also just bad enough to make you question whether or not he should still be here. And that just balances out to a whole bunch of who is this guy? And are we going to be thinking about who is this guy for the rest of his career?
Right now, I don't know. This is one of the more, in my opinion, this was a bad game for Tannehill. He didn't look that good to me. Obviously, the immediate interception by Jamar Taylor was terrible. That was a bad pass. He had some inaccurate throws at other times during the game, and again, his pocket presence is just horrible. I mean, I know he's a good athlete and he can run, but I know it's not fair to compare him to Marino, but Marino was a slug. That guy was so slow, but yet he was so hard to sack because he had a feel for where the pressure was coming from and he moved around in the pocket. And Tannehill just sits in there like a sitting duck, and that makes him hard to block for because he just doesn't move that much. He just stands there and goes through his progressions, and almost a lot of times becomes oblivious to where the heat is coming from. And you just don't see that many. I mean, you just think about the games Daniel's played in, and how often does he escape the pocket? Does he escape a pass rusher and take off and run for positive yards? He usually ends up tucking the ball in and taking a sack. And I don't know how they coach that, but that's the biggest issue with him.
But and I'm glad we brought this up back again because you know what? I am going to I'm gonna tell you what my theory is now, Chad, and I don't know if you read essentially what it was when I was uh, tweeting it out on Twitter and getting people like I'm all in my emotions with all this, but no. And I said this on Ron's show too, about a day ago. I am starting to believe that we as fans and media and journalists and whatever have irreversibly blurred the line between good, bad, and average to the point where it's hard to tell one from the other. I am looking around the NFL. I am looking at the reactions of the Dolphins fan base. And by that, I do mean Twitter because that's where everybody hangs out and complains. It's like this one big community where everybody knows each other and they're all sharing in their woes, which I understand. That's just the way it is. That's fine. I get it. But I see all these people like, oh, Tannehill's the worst in football. Oh, Tannehill's awful. Oh, Tannehill just did this. Oh, what a shock. What is this? Well, of course he did. This is what he does. Yeah, and then he goes and does something amazing and everybody loves him again. But even now it's gotten to the point where now even those people who normally would love him again suddenly don't anymore because they're done buying it. They know that he's just gonna flip flop back to being bad Tannehill. If what you can look at is considered bad. I mean, his stats look amazing. You can complain about garbage time all we want, but the reality is there hasn't been a garbage time for any of these games so far because we have been in it pretty much for all three games. We have been in it for one reason or another. I don't know how, but somehow they've managed to stay in the game. We haven't been blown out yet, even though it looks like we really should have. So, with that in mind, Ryan Tannehill doesn't have any garbage time stats, if you ask me, because he hasn't been in garbage time yet. So, now then, what do I mean? What am I trying to get at with all this? I'm just looking around the league and I'm looking at the reactions of other fan bases. And I understand that this is Dolphins centered, but in order to be unbiased, in order to try and have perspective, some objectivity, you have to be able to look around the league and say, okay, what is everybody else saying about their guys? And I'm looking at yesterday, and Ryan Fitzpatrick just threw 6 interceptions. Mind you, they didn't want to pay him anyway, but they really had no other option. And so they decided, well, I guess we're just going to have to pay Fitzpatrick. And lo and behold, there it is. They just did that. Let's see. Jameis Winston yesterday, 4 seconds left, held the ball and took a sack. So where was all that talk about Jameis Winston being the next great quarterback? Suddenly he's not anymore. He makes too many mistakes. He does some amazing plays every once in a while, but then he does something stupid like that. Where have I heard that before? Marcus Mariota, not doing good at all in Tennessee. Apparently the team was not built well around him. Where have I heard that before? Matthew Stafford, not doing anything special. Matt Ryan has fallen from grace. Who else? Jay Cutler, he's not good anymore. Adam Gase is gone. Like the list goes on and on, Chad, and I'm starting to think that what the reality really has come down to is that, and this is my real theory here, that once Peyton was the first domino to drop, and as soon as we have seen the last of the likes of Brady, Roethlisberger, Breeze, and the last one would probably be Aaron Rodgers in that list. As soon as they retire, I'm honestly starting to believe that we have seen the last of an elite quarterback. I don't think there's going to be such a thing anymore because with all due respect to Cam Newton right now, he's probably the closest one there is. But even then, there are some people who are convinced that Cam is not elite because that defense carried them so far and eventually just crashed and burned, and it wasn't enough to carry him to the Super Bowl victory. So, and it took it took 5 years for Cam to reach the point where he was considered MVP guy. Before it was just like, oh, Cam did this, and everybody, like, before the MVP season, there were people saying that Cam needed to go because he just wasn't getting it done. Now, that's emotional. I understand that. We get emotional. We're fans, and some of us are trying to be journalists, but we're still fans at heart, so we have to try and put those aside. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm looking at these teams, and other than the guys who have like long time documented elite guys, like you would not dare, no matter how much he regresses, you would not dare to imply that Drew Brees is not elite. Even people, even when it was obvious that Peyton Manning just wasn't that guy anymore, it was considered blasphemous to imply that he was anything other than one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the football game. Like you would not acknowledge that he had regressed. You couldn't do it. When Tom Brady struggled the first 4 games of 2014, people were talking about, is this the end of Tom Brady? And everybody was scoffing and mocking everybody who was daring to say that because of course not. It's still Tom Brady. And yes, he proved that. Yes, I'm still Tom Brady. Then there's Drew Brees. He's not doing well in New Orleans anymore, one reason or another. But everybody still says he's elite because he's been well documented as such. So what does that mean? New quarterbacks coming into this league. Let's see, Ryan Tannehill. Okay, he's doing up and down, up and down. Andrew Luck, he was supposed to be the next sure thing, the next superstar. He's up and down as well. He doesn't have as much help on his team, but he does live in a much more favorable division, and he also has the whole I've been training for this for years thing over that Tannehill did not. And even then, Luck still makes a lot of mistakes to go with his amazing plays here and there. So now we have, who are the new guys here? Jared Goff, he's not even playing yet. I guess they're trying to develop him. They're trying to make it slowly, trying to slow boil him. Los Angeles is getting mocked for doing just that and going with Case Keenum instead. So that just goes to show mentality of the NFL right there. Then you have Carson Wentz, and I will give Wentz this. He's looked efficient. I will say that. He's looked efficient. He's looked like he's making good decisions. But I watched some of the game against the Steelers this morning, and I just thought to myself, I'm not seeing anything that really wows me about Carson Wentz, other than maybe he's got good footwork in the pocket and he's making good decisions. Well, good for you. That's supposed to be like the fundamentals of quarterbacking. Congratulations. You have learned the fundamentals of being an NFL quarterback. And this is where I'm coming from here, Chad. The fact that, excuse me, the fact that we are looking at a situation where we are praising a quarterback for knowing how to play quarterback tells me that we have reached a point where we can't develop quarterbacks anymore because we have become so impatient. We have become so insistent on people becoming stars right off the bat, right out of college. And we have done it to the point where we have lost the perspective of these kids coming out of college having almost no way of knowing exactly what it is they're going to be facing once they reach the next level. We've reached a point where college football has become such a spectacle, such this big booming business that universities are taking advantage of, that they don't even care whether or not their players ball out in the at the next level, because once they're out of their college, it's none of their business anymore. I got to get the next guy ready so I can keep my paycheck, which that's understandable. They want to keep their paycheck, but now these kids are coming into the NFL and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and they struggle. I am still waiting for Carson Wentz to finally have the other boot to drop, because guess what? They're not asking him to do much. What's going to happen when they insist that Carson Wentz come and save us? Do something, please. Are they going to be able to execute? Because I'm seeing the Eagles executing as a football team, and it's really shocking to me how good they look on offense as a whole, not just with Carson Wentz. I don't know what Jared Goff is going to do. Dak Prescott looks pretty good with Dallas right now, but he was supposed to be the backup to Romo, and they still have this amazing offensive line, and they still have Des Bryant and Jason Witten and all these experienced guys who know what they are doing, and they've been doing it for a very long time. So it's not like Dak is getting thrown in there with a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing. They get these. He has a bunch of guys who have been doing a very good job for a very long time with a coach who has been entrenched with what he is doing. So my theory, in point, I've been ranting for a while now, so I'm just gonna lay it out in the bottom line. I think we are going to be seeing the last of actually good developed quarterbacks, because we've reached the point where bad is the new average because nobody knows how to play quarterback anymore, Chad.
I don't know that that's true. I think the game's changed, and that's what you're seeing. Because you even go back to the '80s and the early '90s, it was still a primary running league, and it's to the point now where every team is turning into a pass first, run second type of team, and so it's requiring the quarterbacks to throw 40, 50 times a game, whereas it used to be they might throw 15 times a game. And so it suddenly exposes, I guess, per se, teams that don't have exceptional quarterbacks get exposed a lot more, because that player has got to make so many more passes. And so you're starting to see, for the type of league the NFL has become, it's hard to have quarterbacks that can do that, and it takes a long time. You're right, to develop them, and it's hard to get them. And so it really is turned into a have or have not league. And you made a very good point with Tannehill. Obviously, I'm harping on Tannehill's pocket presence. They need to figure out a way to help him with that. But as quarterbacks go, I don't believe he's a bad quarterback. He's just not a great quarterback, and he probably never will be a great quarterback. And so you named off a few. Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls, and he just blew the game last week with the Redskins throwing a
He's
bad
another one,
pass that
yeah.
got picked off. And that's, to me, that's a very interesting player, because Eli Manning's done a lot of good things. He's been the guy for the Giants. But if I ask the average football fan, hey, would you rather have Eli Manning or Ryan Tannehill? That's not a huge differential probably in their mind. And so
No, but I would have picked Eli.
yeah, you might, but my point being is, I think if I pulled Ryan Tannehill off the Dolphins and put Eli Manning on the Dolphins, I don't think they're a significantly better football team. It's not like you're throwing in Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that, and people want those quarterbacks so bad, and they want Ryan Tannehill to be Tom Brady so bad. They want him to be Aaron Rodgers so bad, and he's probably not. He's probably not going to have that. And so it is what it is. I'm a believer in the philosophy you mentioned, Lewis. I think you keep drafting quarterbacks, and you just hope you hit on something special, and I don't know that that's necessarily always the first pick or two. I mean, Goff apparently is really struggling, from everything I've read, to learn the offense with the Rams. That's why he's not playing. It's not the Rams being foolish. He doesn't know what's going on. And the Cleveland Browns, I don't know how their GM feels like he even has his job right now. I know they picked up some picks, and they're probably thinking next year we're going to be loaded up, but they could have had Carson Wentz, and that has to be a tough pill to swallow right now for the Cleveland Browns, thinking Carson Wentz right now is looking like he could be one of the next great quarterbacks. Maybe not, maybe he's not, but
No, I'm
the
not buying it.
reality is how bad would the Cleveland fan base like to have him right now as their quarterback, and they had that chance. And so the point being, I think you keep getting them, and if you get a chance to get them, you get them. I mean, that the funniest thing to me is obviously the greatest quarterback for the Dolphins is Marino, and Miami didn't even need a quarterback this year. They just saw the talent, and they grabbed one. They're like, wow, that's a good quarterback. Let's get him. And the Dolphins are going to have to probably at some point man up and say, look, if it's the first round or for whatever reason, let's say the Dolphins are picking 10th in the first round and there's a really good quarterback prospect available and he's not going to come in and play for him, value wise in the way this league gets, it's probably worth it just get him. Get that quarterback, get him on your roster, let him be your backup. And if he's going to be special, you've got him because there's just so few of them guys out there right now with the way the game's played. So with that being said, I still think Tannehill is the best quarterback on our team. I don't think it helps the team at all to start throwing Matt Moore in there. He'll probably make a few exciting plays that Tannehill may not, but he'll also be throwing in some of those Ryan Fitzpatrick 6 interception performances as well because he likes to force the football around. And you got to go with what you have. And I'm hoping that Gase is going to be continuing to improve with Tannehill, but I can't even get that critical of Tannehill alone right now because I'm seeing running backs run the wrong direction. I'm seeing receivers run the wrong routes. I'm seeing receivers drop wide open passes. And like Kenny Stills had the Dolphins are 2-1 if Kenny Stills is a better receiver. And so I have a hard time just pinning it all on Tannehill, missed blocking assignments. So what you are seeing is Brian Tannehill is not a quarterback that can overcome a bunch of people playing poorly around him and still win football games. And you're seeing that with a lot of other quarterbacks. Obviously, Andrew Luck can't just win football games with a team that's not, is good around him. And even Aaron Rodgers has struggled a little bit at times. So you got to have, some good teams. It sucks that we don't have Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and they always have a good game plan it's being executed flawlessly. All the players know where they're going, what they're supposed to do. They're getting there on time. It makes it easy for the quarterback because everybody's doing what they're supposed to. So until the other people are executing, if people are right where they're supposed to be and Tannehill's consistently missing passes or he's consistently making bad reads and throwing interceptions, then I'm on board with get Tannehill out of there. But the fact is he's not necessarily doing that. He makes a bad play here or there, but Tannehill is not losing football games. He hasn't been. And so until the rest of the team starts to step up and make him the problem, I have a hard time focusing on Tannehill.
And that's the internal struggle right now with Dolphins fans, Chad. I mean, okay, so let's look at this just from a Tannehill standpoint, and let's try and see if we can get my theory in there as well. He comes in. He comes from Texas A&M, and we have to make the obligatory joke. Did you know that he was a wide receiver before playing quarterback? No, I didn't know that. Okay, now that that's over with, he came into the NFL, first round pick, had a lot of talent, had all the physical tools he needed to be a great quarterback, but he was raw and he needed coaching. We bring in Joe Philbin, who's supposed to be the guy who made Aaron Rodgers. That was a lie all the time. I don't know why we bought it, but whatever. It's done. So Philbin comes in, coaches Tannehill to the point where he's looking to draft Derek Carr when he comes out of college. Oh, and by the way, Derek Carr is having his own struggles right now. So make of that what you will. Um, I mean, I've reached a point, Chad, and this is why this is why I've really made my theory is this. I'm just looking around the football league. I can't look at just Tannehill. I have to look at everybody else and think, are we the only ones having this problem? And the majority of the league is also having this internal struggle regarding their quarterback. How many teams can you say right now I'm gonna actually put you on the spot here a little bit. I want you to name the teams right now who you feel are quite comfortable with their quarterback position right now, and there aren't a bunch of people saying it's time for us to move on. This guy just isn't enough.
I'm not going to off the top of my head. I'd just say like 5 or 6.
So, and there are how many teams in the NFL?
32. Yeah, that's the have or have not league.
But
It really is. So
but how we used to be able to develop these guys, there used to be more to work with. Do you know what this is what I'm saying, Chad? It's not about whether quarterbacks can be good or not. It's just that they're not coming in ready. And we're not
well,
being patient enough
again,
to make
Lewis,
them ready.
it used to be you threw 15, maybe 20 passes a game, and now quarterbacks are throwing 40 to 50 passes a game, and you're passing
But it's the
a
same
lot more.
stuff.
Well, you're right. It's a and there's a bigger discrepancy. I don't know the right word between college and the NFL now because the way the NFL plays the game, you can't bring a guy in as easily from college and start having him play, and so you get the guys that are more popular in the draft because they're coming from a pro system or they're more pro ready, if that's even really a thing. But it's the game has changed fundamentally that the quarterback has to throw a lot more passes and there's a lot more receivers in play. This isn't a two tight end. You have one guy going down the field and one other receiver, doing a route, and so your read is one or two reads. It's you have three or four or five guys out in routes now, and things are happening ultra fast, and it's a lot to get good at. Not only one, just learning the complexity of the game, adjusting to the speed of the game, but then having a feel for it. And so it takes time, and I I think the absolute worst case scenario for the Dolphins would be to cut Tannehill or get rid of him next year, bring in just an average quarterback to replace him, or to roll the dice and draft a rookie, and then but Tannehill's finally hit his stride and he goes to a different team and makes the Pro Bowl for 10 years. That would be very, very difficult. And so I think they need to keep working with him, keep Adam Gase working with him, and they'll get better. What I see going on right now is Adam Gase is a full throttle offense. They do a ton of no huddle. They do a ton of hurry up, and they come up to the line. They call plays, and that's hard to do for personnel changing. And they don't have very much consistency at the running back position. They've completely reshuffled the offensive line, and it's a lot of people just not quite sure where they're going, what they're doing, and that alone with trying to get the timing and stuff down makes it very difficult. And so I suspect as the season goes on, they should get better and better. And my thought was these first four games, we just have to survive it at 2-2. I don't know if we're going to get there with the Bengals, but after that, we've got a 4-game home stretch in which it's a lot easier to run that type of offense when you're at home and you don't have the crowd noise to contend with so much. So I anticipate they'll get better. I see some bright spots. I thought, even though I don't know how well he did from execution in terms of where he was supposed to be at in blocking and stuff, Drake was impressive to me. He ran with a lot of heart. He ran with the type of attitude and power we haven't seen since No Sean was doing it for a game or two before we lost him. But that's what I want to see out of my running back. I want to see them, when he pushed that pile early on in that game and got an extra 2 or 3 yards for a first down. That's the kind of attitude you're looking for out of your running back, and you want him inspiring the team. And I'm hoping that they can start to get Kenyon Drake more and more in tune with what his responsibilities are and his roles are. I know he missed the majority of the preseason, so that's probably a lot to ask of him. But I don't think Jay Ajayi is even going to be on this team next year. I'll make that statement right now. I'm very low on him. I know he had the game-winning touchdown, but he's making a ton of mental mistakes. Again, as I've been saying since they drafted him, he doesn't run with power very well at all. He runs way too upright. How you just watch him run and look for him to lower his shoulder, and you're not going to see it. He tends to just stay upright, and then that loses all his power. Um, I'm hoping we can get some more out of Arian Foster because our best two backs, in my opinion, are Drake and Foster, and hopefully we can utilize those guys enough this year and just use Ajayi and Damian Williams as alternating guys. But it's very apparent this team was expecting to get C.J. Anderson, and I think they were stunned when Denver countered their offer and kept him, and that really put them in a tough position because if they probably knew that if they weren't going to get CJ Anderson, I think they probably would have got Lamar Miller re-signed, and I think they were thinking we'll let Lamar Miller go. We'd rather have CJ Anderson, and it just didn't happen, and they have not been able to really recover from that from a personnel standpoint on offense. So my hope is Drake will get better. I'm hoping I haven't seen this yet. I've been been pushing for it on my Twitter, but they've got to get guys in the game, get the ball to guys that are dangerous. And Drake is dangerous. Jarvis Landry is dangerous. I'd like to see them take a few more shots to Devontae Parker, not caring at all if he's one on one. Who cares where the cornerback's at? Just throw it up, get it up in the air, and let Devontae Parker try to make a play because he can absolutely do that. And I want to see them get Jakeem Grant 2 to 3 touches a game because he is dangerous and he can change a whole way a defense plays because he's so fast. They have to account for him, and so I'm hoping that Adam Gase figures out a way to get him on the field and get him the ball 2 or 3 times a game is it in space. That's all he has to touch the ball, and then you can kind of move him in and out of the game and make teams adjust for him. Guys that I'm just not that excited about are Jay Ajayi, Damian Williams. I'm kind of hot or cold on. He's not terrible. He's not great. He just hasn't been doing that much. I'm not really high on Kenny Stills. He makes a play here or there, but you don't see Kenny Stills winning ball games like you see Jarvis Landry doing or Devontae Parker doing. And so I want to see them get guys in the game that are dangerous. If you're a team, realistically, Lewis, and you have to play defense, who are you afraid of on the Dolphins right now? Who do you worry about that's going to hurt you?
Um, on offense,
Yeah, who if you were game planning on defense, who would you say we got to be careful? This guy's going to hurt us.
Landry. Landry.
Exactly. That's the problem right now is Jarvis Landry is the only guy out there that is making the plays to make a difference in the game. I think Devontae Parker is getting there quickly. He had a big touchdown catch in this game, and he can definitely be a very difficult matchup one on one for receivers down the field. The Dolphins just have to roll the dice once in a while and throw a 40-yard, 50-yard bomb up to Devontae Parker and see if he can just beat the guy. And good teams do that all the time. If you have AJ Green or if you have, Dez, throw the ball up to them when they're one on one. You don't even care where the corner's at. You're just getting the ball up in the air and giving them a one-on-one shot and say, all right, how many guys can stop those guys on a one-on-one situation? And Devontae Parker has that kind of talent. So they've got to start utilizing him more. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I know some people are big on Kenny Stills, but I personally would rather see just a few times in the game take Kenny Stills out and put Jakeem Grant in there and just run a few different schemes with him because I think Jakeem Grant can scare some teams, and I just don't think Kenny Stills is doing it.
I don't think Stills is going to cut it any either, but I don't want to also. It's Chad. I just don't know, man. I don't. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they should do. It's gotten to the point where I feel like this roster needs a complete overhaul. Just get rid of everybody, trade everybody, get rid of everybody because everybody is just not cutting it. Here's who you need to keep if I'm the Miami Dolphins right now. Jarvis Landry on offense. On offense. I'm just going to say it on offense. I'm going to start with quarterback. I'd keep Ryan Tannehill, but only because I don't know if there's anybody better. That's what we have to find out, and that's why we keep him, so we have some kind of basis to test it out on. I'm keeping Dowdy because who knows, maybe he is that guy. He just needs time to develop. Running back, Kenyon Drake, I'm keeping him, and that's about it because he's the young guy. He's showing promise. Jarvis Landry, I'm keeping. Parker, I am keeping. Carew, Grant. So that's 4 wide receivers that I'm willing to keep. Everybody else can get out. I'm keeping Deion Sims, but maybe as a depth guy only because he's not exactly starter material. So I'm getting rid of that. I'm keeping Tunsil. I'm keeping Pouncey. And again, that's about it. Now, defense, I'm keeping Rashad Jones, obviously. In fact, we need to sign him to a contract now before he takes off and becomes the greatest safety to ever play football for a different team. Xavier Howard, I'm keeping. He seems to show some promise. I'm keeping. Actually, I don't think I'm keeping any of the linebackers. Maybe Koamisi because he's good depth when he's healthy. I'm keeping Cam, but only because he's the guy who's the legend of Miami now at this point. I'm keeping Sue and Julius Wormsley, I guess. But like after that, I'm out of players. Matt Darr.
Well, I mean, you kind of ran through the whole roster, but you're starting to highlight some of the issues they're having. Is that how many players on the team do you have that are dangerous? And I'm of the mindset if you have a veteran player who's been in the league for several years and he just isn't ever taking games over, he isn't making those plays, I just don't think they're ever going to do it. And so I was focusing on Kenny Stills. I just think he's one of those players. I think Jordan Cameron's starting to come off that way to me. I don't see him being a enormous difference maker. And if you got guys out there and they are not going to be Pro Bowl caliber players, I would rather see them play younger guys and try to make it happen. And we might be a missed field goal away from that be exactly what was going on, Lewis. I mean, if we had lost to the Browns, which we absolutely should have, we lost that game. Talk about getting a Christmas present wrapped, delivered, and
I got a lot of
hand
flack
sealed
for it.
from the Browns.
I got a lot of flack for it, but I said that we didn't deserve to win that game.
Oh, we didn't deserve to win that game. That game, we were beat, and having a kicker that showed up just a few days ago and then he misses 3 field goals is not going to cut it in the NFL. And so, had we started this season 0-3 and lost to that Browns team, this week would be nothing short of ugly, very very ugly. Because I don't see this team having any chance at all this year if we're at 0-3 right now after losing to the Browns. I think we'd be dead in the water. And then the focus in Miami immediately starts to become, well, Adam Gase is obviously our coach, for the next few years at least. And we've got to start building this team for Adam Gase. And that means suddenly there's several players on the team that aren't going to be back next year.
They've been
There's
Philbined.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. They, like I said, they lack physicality. I don't, as you watch the game at home, there's those plays where you jump up and go, "Oh man, that was amazing," or that it gets you pumped up. And I'm trying to think, Cameron Wake does that once in a while on a big sack, but who is the player on this team that is just he's the beast. He's the guy that when the game's on the line, he's just gonna do it. And really, Landry is it right now on offense. We don't have anybody else on offense that they seem that animated. You know what? This probably sounds terrible, but I'd like to see Ryan Tannehill get up and shove a linebacker, get into a fight. I mean, they go 3 and out, and then they just sit there smiling on the sidelines, and I'm thinking, this is the game. I mean, to me, the Dolphins offense lost that game. They went how many 3 and out, like what, 2 or 3 times in a row in the last 5 minutes, and they just kept giving the Browns chance after chance after chance to just win that game. And then the narrative comes out, our defense is terrible. I'm like, the whole team was terrible. The defense wasn't great, no, but you don't go 3 and out with the last 4 minutes of the game against the Cleveland Browns at your home opening. You need to go down and win the football game. And I would have expected, Odell Beckham type stuff on the sidelines. They should be just irate. And the only one that to me that looked irate on the whole team was Gase. Gase looked like he wanted to kill somebody, and he should because the team looked pathetic. And I don't know where that starts at. Why is it the team isn't just livid about not getting it done? And so maybe that starts with Tannehill, or maybe that starts with Gase. But I know I'd be doing exactly what Gase is be doing, and like, hey, if you guys aren't going to go out and do your jobs, I'm going to get somebody in here that wants to.
And that's where I come right back to it. We need a roster overhaul. Like all of these guys can be talented, but they got to be talented somewhere else because they're just not doing it
Yeah,
here.
I think we need a cultural overhaul. It
That's
needs to be.
harder.
It is, but when the last time Miami was good was before any of us were alive in the '70s, and they were a smash mouth team that people feared. And Philbin absolutely came in and tried to install this finesse pass team, and teams just push them around when it counts.
Well, it wasn't just Philbin, Chad. We were bad once Marino retired. Well, no, I take it back because we did make the playoffs with Fiedler at quarterback. Not that he was the reason we made it. It was Ricky Williams and that defense again. Like you're right. We were a smash mouth football team for a very long time, but that stopped working somewhere along the line. Somewhere around the time Sperano showed up. Like
Well,
after
we lost some of those. Like obviously, we had players like Zach Thomas, who those were hard nosed, dangerous football players, and we just don't have that mentality right now. I think their hope was they bring in Adama Sue, and he does that. But Sue doesn't come off to me as a he's a great athlete. He's a great defensive tackle. He plays hard. He's exceptionally talented, hardworking. But he doesn't come off to me as that guy that just blows his top and gets the team fired up and you know what I mean. He's just more of he does his own thing. That's what he is. And I don't know how to get him that motivated, but again, you just don't see the passion that you want to see out of the team right now. And so I'm hoping that the coaching staff it's going to have to start there. They've got to figure out this is the players they've got. You know, you can go on and say, well, they need a roster overhaul. They need this guy needs to play better. But the reality is they're professional coaches. They have professional athletes, and they have got to figure out how to get those athletes ready. The if they're not ready, they need to get him out of there, and that's where Gase is at right now. Is he's going through this process of having to get out the guys that just are there for a paycheck and the guys that are there that want to play football.
I think we'll stop it right here, Chad. But before we go, I just need to point out something that just occurred to me, and it's a very very scary situation. Do you know who we sound like right now?
Omar Kelly.
Correct.
No, I think it's justified though. Um, I
Because
I
everything we
I
have
don't want
just
to go
said,
into the Omar
every
angle, but
everything we've said, man, though, is stuff he's said. There's no leadership.
no, I would agree with that, and I don't think Omar Kelly is necessarily always that far off on his analysis of what he sees. He's there at
Just
the
a jerk about
practices.
it.
He's kind of has an attitude, and I absolutely believe Omar Kelly is slanted towards certain players. So that's why I don't like him. But I got to absolutely agree with you, Lewis. This is what you're seeing on the field makes Omar Kelly seem right, whether he was right or wrong. This team right now doesn't appear to have the passion you need. If you want to run the football, you want to stop the run. That's a lot of that's about attitude, and it's about being nasty, and it's about who wants it more and who's willing to do those things. And right now, I think there's several players on this team right now who really don't care if they win or lose. I think they're getting paid and they're putting their effort in there. They show up, they do their workouts, and they're doing their best, but they just don't seem to have that mentality of, you know what I mean, where they just have to win at all costs. They're in there to do whatever it takes to win. And
Do you know who showed that last week?
the who showed it whatever it takes to win attitude.
I think you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought Jarvis Landry. That's
Nope.
who I
I
was
was. He
thinking.
was on the Browns.
Oh, Terrell Pryor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a case in point of what I'm talking about is did you see his reaction when that kicker missed the field goal?
He was pissed.
He was pissed. He played his ass off and you know what? They blew it and he was so mad. And you look at the Dolphins sideline, if the Dolphins player missed his kick, they probably just roll their eyes with a grim half-ass grin on their face and
Like
then
they knew it. Like they knew it would happen.
you know, and so that's what I'm saying. I don't know how to get that into and unfortunately the only coach we had that I think was really focusing on that was the only coach that got a few blowouts was last year,
Dan
and it
Campbell.
wasn't Philbin. And so, hopefully Gase. One thing I will say about Gase is he's showing backbone. He's not doing the whole Philbin wishy-washy. He would just be doing his canned responses. Well, we just got to get better. We just got to execute better. Gase is at least coming out and immediately calling people out. He immediately put his first round pick right tackle on the bench because he was playing poorly, and
And he
he
called
left
himself
Jay.
out too. Let's not say it as like he's just blaming his players and he's blameless in this. No, he's calling himself out too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or he left Jai home on week one. It's at least those are things I used to see out of Shula, where Shula did not care who you were, where you were from, how good you thought you were. If you weren't getting it done, he replaced you. You were gone, and that's the mentality you've got to have. I know it makes it more of a cutthroat game, but
We need cutthroat right now.
yeah, people are tired of 8-8, and in Miami right now, it doesn't even look like they're
Gonna make it that far.
8-8 be hopeful right now. And until they decide who they want to be as a team, the coaches and the players, they're just going to continue to get kicked around the league. So I'm hoping that maybe this game getting out of it with the win, really, really lucky. Maybe it'll be an eye opener for them. It'll be like, wow, we just played a third string quarterback.
On the worst team in
They are
football.
missing their top two receivers on top of it. They're missing their top defensive player. Clearly, and this is no disrespect to the Cleveland, they're with all the players they have out, they're probably the worst team in the NFL.
They were
Talent,
ranked lowest anyway.
yeah. I mean, they're just, and absolutely, it's no disrespect, but they're terrible right now. They're missing so many aspects of the team, and basically, they just took Terrell Pryor and almost beat us. And that alone should be a wake up call to this team. It's like, all right, if you want to win in this league, they have a long ways to go, and they need to work a lot harder. That's all I'm hoping.
Well, hopefully Gase will be able to instill this will to win mentality as time goes on. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how we have to fix it. I don't know who has to leave. I don't know if it's going to have to be Tannehill leaving or somebody else, but something has to change, man. And I don't see it happening this year. Let me just be perfectly honest. It's going to be 2000. We already knew this. We knew 2016 was going to be a wash. Like I would like to see a show of hands of people who actually thought we were going to compete in 2016 and pull off some kind of miracle, because the same, pretty much like with the exception of the few people that Stephen Dodd pointed out to us in the chat room, it's still the same team. It's still the same Philbin, blah, whatever football team. And I am not going to acknowledge anything about Stephen Ross because look, guys, before we go, Chad, I just have to address this. For all the crap Stephen Ross gets about trying to about not being able to put a winning football team on the field, once again, we have to go through some perspective here and think how many owners even get mentioned with their football teams. The only reason Stephen Ross gets mentioned is because he's still looking for somebody to build that football team. He's not trying to build the football team himself. He's trying to find somebody who can do it. Tannenbaum just happens to be the guy right now. And he did at one point build a winning football team. He spent a lot of money to do it, but the Jets won those games. So, I mean, hey, that's got to count for something. So with that said, Stephen Ross, I don't think is the problem. Maybe the rest, maybe he just needs to find somebody he can actually trust. But when I'll let you know when that super genius who can fix the Dolphins comes out of hiding, because right now he doesn't exist.
No, I think Stephen Ross is way too overly. Hey, you want to know the reason the Cleveland Browns lost to the Dolphins on Sunday?
Why? Because
Their
Ross fed them some groan.
No, the kicker they signed, Parkey, was he's only been in the league, or I want to say 2 years or so, and they could have signed Robbie Gould, the old Bears kicker, who's much more proven, but he's a veteran. And the reality is the Browns chose to go with Parkey because they don't have to pay him the league veteran contract. That's why they went with him. He was a lot cheaper. And so they went, and the Browns are $48 million under the salary cap right now. 48 million. And they chose to sign a kicker that would be less expensive. And that is exactly why they lost that football game. So I
what's
think
the
just
point with
keep
Ross?
that. My point is keep that in perspective with Stephen Ross. If you're ripping him, he, in my opinion, is doing everything in his power to get a winning football team. He put the new stadium up. Whether you think that was controversial or not, he has a beautiful stadium. He has kept Miami solidly locked into Miami for the next 20 years. And he's trying to get the hottest coaches on the market, and he's trying to get the team any way possible to win. He's not refusing to pay anybody. He will pay assistants and coaches top dollars to get them. He will pay guys like Nadamik and Sue top dollars to get them. And there are several owners in the league right now that aren't willing to do that. And so I think just keep that in perspective if you're a Stephen Ross hater. Is as a fan, I don't know what more you want from an owner. He's doing everything he can financially to help the team win, and he's not meddling. He's not in there, mandating they go get this player. He's just trying to hire guys that can get it done. So I don't know what else from a fan perspective you'd want out of your owner.
And that's the challenge that I would put to fans right now. Like, what else do you want from Stephen Ross? For him to go fire himself? And what will that accomplish? Absolutely nothing. So, all right. So I guess we'll go ahead and call it a night right here. This is not the way that I don't think we're gonna do shows like this on Monday nights all the time. This just happened to be the time that we were going to be able to pull it off this week. I'm hoping that as time goes on, I want to do a show at least once a week. That's what my goal is here. But I need to find some time. I need to find a set time where we can sit down and say, this is when we're going to do our show, and we're going to move from there. I don't know how much we'll be able to do live shows. I'm still a little nervous about the technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. So, um, we will do another show next week. When, I'm not sure. Probably maybe after the maybe we'll even do on Friday right after the Bengals game. But we'll see, man. We'll see. I don't know. We still have to work out some of these little kinks here and there. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us. If you want to listen in after the show is over, you'll be able to see it tomorrow on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud, or you can always rewatch it right here on our PhinManiacs YouTube and, of course, on PhinManiacs.com. So thank you all so much for listening. We hope you had a fantastic night, and fins up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hope we